All right, we will get started. It's Megan Twentyman here, the brand manager here at Soft Solutions, and I've got Matt Carey on the line with me today as
Hello.
well. So the purpose of today's webinar is to continue our series of short webinars updating you on major changes that are occurring with 3CX or any of our other VoIP brands. Service Pack 3 for version 16 was in alpha for several weeks, went to beta last Friday, and Matt's going to give us an overview of some pretty major changes or key changes that could affect your customers. And then at the end, we will have time for a Q&A, and that doesn't have to be specific to this webinar. If you've got pressing 3CX questions that you think is relevant to other partners on the group as well, feel free to reach out. So I'm going to hand you over to Matt, and I'll butt in every so often with little bits from the brand management perspective, and Matt will talk from the technical perspective. So over to you, Matt.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Megan mentioned, our webinar series currently, we're just doing these like short, bite-sized little updates on a regular occurrence, just to keep everyone updated. So today we're going to look, so we've got SP3 coming down the pipeline sometime soon. I had some interesting feedback yesterday. We held a 3CX technical training event in Palmerston North, which was well received, which is great. But there's some interesting things coming in the new service pack that we just want to quickly cover off. So the beta was just released. The main key thing around this new update is there's new functionality coming into the mobile application. They've introduced, so this is both for Android and iOS. It does seem that the Android app is having a little more functionality in it with a blog post that was just released overnight with a few key changes. With those changes, we've got the likes of the UI has been redesigned, so it's a lot more tidy. The Android app now can move and roam between Wi-Fi and 3G or 4G. So if you answer a call on Wi-Fi, you walk out of range of the access point, the call's going to keep on going, which is really cool. There's a new video chat availability coming into the mobile app as well, so maybe a FaceTime disruptor, we shall see. But of course, all included for free if you have an active maintenance or subscription package, which is really cool. There's new changes around SIP trunks as well and how they're laid out, which is exciting. And there's additional security in there as well. Of course, there's bug fixes in there too. We've got a couple of new phone interrupts that are going in, which is really exciting to see as well. So how do we update? So because this is just a service pack, it's basically just driven from your management console. The update will show up under your updates tab. And basically you just set it to download, it'll do a quick restart. So the key thing there is planning for maintenance windows. Because it's not a major update, or upgrade I should say, it isn't going to take a very long time. I would estimate probably 5 to 10 minutes or something like that. So definitely want to schedule this for outside of office hours. Updates, of course, again, available to anybody that has active maintenance or an active subscription. Even though I've never seen an update go wrong, I am a paranoid person by nature, so I strongly recommend taking a backup before you do any update or upgrade to a 3CX system. Obviously, if it was to be a major update, then you would be taking a backup anyway, but I strongly recommend doing that. And of course, again, a little plug for best practice. Make sure you've got backups set up within your 3CX phone system. There's the ability to put them into Google Cloud and Google Drive, which is free, and generally backups aren't terribly huge if you're not including call recordings. So download and install it. The services will restart and bring the system back online, and you'll get an email notification from the PBX when it's complete. So one of the key drivers for running this update today is around the new mobile client. So there's a big architecture change that they've implemented within both the 3CX phone system and the app as well. So the key thing here is the new push functionality that's coming into the apps only works with Service Pack 3. Notably, when this update comes out on the iOS and the Google Play stores, the app will only work with version 16 of 3CX. So if you're on Service Pack 1, 2, or 3, you're fine. However, it's not backwards compatible with version 15.5. So there needs to be a lot of planning put into place for when this update comes out. If you've got older installs out there on version 15.5, when the new app comes down the pipes, Apple phones and Google phones are going to be automatically upgrading. And if you have a customer that's on an older version 15.5, then they're probably going to have a little bit of a bad time. So we recently pushed out a blog post, 3CX has put one out as well, around how to disable app updates on iOS and Android. So I highly recommend, after hopping off of this webinar, going in there and checking it out. It's got a step-by-step instruction. SoftSol, we have the old APK for the version 14 and 15.5 application to install on Android. However, there isn't one for Apple at this stage, so definitely important to make sure that's disabled if you're not moving to version 16 anytime soon. So we expect a final release soon. Megan and myself were quite surprised that alpha was in alpha for so long, because typically 3CX are very quick at iterating and moving in between editions. So we expect the final release to be coming out soon. From what I've seen of the forums, the old mobile application will probably be discontinued about a month after release. So there's a little bit of time there, but it's important to get ahead of it. And definitely check out our latest blog posts around disabling these. We try and push out about 2 to 3 a month, typically around VoIP, with little tech tips and new things that are coming down the pipeline. You can subscribe and get email notifications to that as well. So I highly recommend it. And that's our nutshell. That's our main VoIP email address there that you can reach us on, and our main telephone number. Megan, would you like to add anything?
Yep, just want to jump in there. And one thing that you didn't quite cover off there, Matt, was around Linux. If you've got auto updates turned on for Linux, it does not differentiate between a minor or major update. So if auto updates are on, it will just install the update. So that is a consideration around Linux installs. In terms of our latest blog post and a link to the 3CX blog around update 3, those are accessible from our weekly newsletter, our VoIP update that came out via email yesterday, and just simply by going to our website and onto our blog. There has been a slight change overnight. Initially, all documentation was saying that the new Android and iOS apps would only work with version 16 update 3 upwards. That has changed overnight to include Service Pack 1 and 2 as well for version 16, but as Matt stressed a moment ago, not for version 15.5. So most customers have auto updates turned on their Android or iOS phone. I'm as guilty as anybody else around that. So it is definitely something to consider. What version are your customers on? What is the impact going to be to them? The new features and that new architecture coming in the smartphone apps is really exciting, as Matt mentioned, with Android, the ability to move seamlessly from Wi-Fi onto 3G and 4G is fantastic, and something that will make everybody's life that little bit easier. So just, yeah, real key considerations to think about in terms of where your customers are at. Now, like always, 3CX do not confirm exactly when a update is going to go live, but in Matt and my best experience, the normal pattern is that things sit at alpha for 2 weeks, beta for 2 weeks, and then go live, and it's always on a Friday night at around 7:30 New Zealand time that we see that happening, which is when Cyprus comes online for their Friday morning. Now, as Matt mentioned, the alpha sat at alpha for several weeks longer than what we expected, and there was some, significant, I guess, infrastructure changes around that with beta. Beta came out last Friday night, so 1 week ago tomorrow. So we would expect to see that update go live anytime in the next kind of 7-day period, but we would expect it to be on a Friday night. We've pushed that information out as soon as we got that beta information or saw that across there. And the purpose of today's webinar was to update you on that. The other thing that we mentioned is the VoIP updates. If you need any recordings at any time of our webinars, you're welcome to reach out to Matt or I directly, or to VoIP. We don't post all of the webinar recordings up onto our YouTube page, because often we're talking about information that's sensitive to our reseller partners as opposed to our end customers that are using 3CX. So I think that's probably the key things there. We are running another webinar on Monday. That one will be slightly longer than these traditional 10 to 15-minute webinars, and Matt's going to walk through some VoIP deployment scenarios. So that's things like how to size a license, key considerations of the network infrastructure, all those kind of important informational things that sometimes can get missed or forgotten. So it's just sort of a recap and very useful to walk through. So that's at midday on Monday. Links to register for that webinar are available via our VoIP update and our weekly newsletter. And I think that's everything from us today.
Yeah,
Are there any questions from anybody? Feel free to pop those in the chat and we'll try and cover those off, or any questions just about 3CX in general that we can answer.
And can definitely fire them to our VoIP address should you remember a little bit later on.
No pressing questions?
No, doesn't appear to be.
Doesn't appear to be. So thank you everybody for joining us. We are aiming to have 2 of these webinars every month to cover off major changes, gotchas. We often encounter the gotchas, those types of things. So we try to keep them short and sweet so you can have a cup of coffee and listen to us. And as I say, Monday's webinar will be slightly longer because there's a little bit more detail around those sizing for deployment scenarios and those key considerations. But we really thank you for your time, and we look forward to you joining us on Monday.
Awesome. See you guys next time. Thank you very much for attending.